Welcome back to the Grimm Workshop Trapping School. Today we're going to be going over the snare locks that can be found on the Jamie Burleigh Signature card. The snare locks on the Jamie Burleigh Signature card is designed to work with wire emergency snares. And that's going to be most applicable to small game. And this is, I think this is a 24 gauge picture wire. So this is pretty commonly available. And this has no lock on it. I've just got a twisted eye on here. And the problem with a twisted eye with no lock is when the animal closes up the snare, if it relaxes a little bit, it'll open right back up again. If the animal pulls hard enough and actually kinks the wire, that's your best chance of holding the game. But any relaxation of the animal at all, and it can just open that snare right back up and back itself out of it. So I'm always cautious calling things like this snares. These picture frame wire snares, you can get rabbits and squirrels, you can get into small game, but this is actually a snare. When I refer to a snare normally, this is what I'm referring to. This is a commercial locking snare. So this is what a professional trapper would use, and if you were feeding yourself with snares in the wilderness, this is what you would want to use as well. So this is airplane cable, so this is much stronger than any picture wire that you're going to be able to use. But what I want to show you most is this lock here. So see, it's got this nice round loop to it. It's not a teardrop loop, so the animal's going to see this and just try to head right through it. And when it locks down, it does not back up. You actually have to open this lock, take it against the strain to open it up. This thing locks down and it does not back up. No matter how much you try, you cannot get this to open without relaxing the lock and manually opening it. Because the snare locks need wire to function properly, you're going to have to carry some type of wire with you. So you can get a small spool of this stuff, or you can use a micro spool tool. These are kind of handy, but the card itself will actually carry the wire as well. So in the upper corner, you see we've got a couple size slits, and that's going to help you in bending wire, because this has got a lot of other uses besides just making your traps. But I've got a hole up here where I can start it. And then once I get it started, I've got these indentations. So I can wrap quite a bit of wire around here. And this is an emergency kit anyway, so you would have to take this wire off to access some of these tools. But if you're in that type of situation, you probably need that wire anyway. So you utilize that snare lock. I've got this off the card, and I'm just going to take a small tail, put it through, and twist it. So you can take the tail of this and run it through right now, but I've always found it way more efficient if I bend the end down a little bit. You want this to follow kind of a half circle radius, or half an octagon radius, I guess. So I'm just going to put small little, maybe 15-degree bends on both ends. So about like that is what I'm after. That's 2 subtle bends. Now you can use the bending jigs here and give it a little bit of press. You probably need a little bit more leverage than that. I've had better luck just tapping it between 2 rocks. If you've got a rock with a little bit of a curve to it, just tap it into there. If you had a Leatherman or other type of multi-tool with you, that would probably be the easiest way. So you're going to want to make sure you leave enough wire to anchor this to something solid. And we're going to come back in from the bottom side of this. So we're rounded on top. We're going to come up through the bottom. For this, usually about the size of my fist would work for a rabbit. For a squirrel, I would go a little bit smaller. You're always going to go for a neck catch, but a body catch is still going to feed you. So I'm going to be targeting a rabbit, so I'm going to go for about my fist. Again, if this was squirrel, I would make this maybe about this size right here. And this is a pretty rough looking loop, and you're going to want to form this loop so that the snare fires a whole lot faster. Now to do that, you just want to get any round stick, and I'm just going to kind of bend that wire, try to get any kinks out of it. So this is a pretty good looking round loop to me, and you're going to want to set this with your lock on top. So you're going to want this about at the 12 o'clock, maybe 11:30 position. That way the snare naturally has gravity on its side when it closes. And with this lock, when it pulls tight, our snare lock is actually kinking into the wire and it will not let it open. So I've got this opened up again approximately for rabbit, and we know that we have to set this snare lock on top, so gravity is going to help us out. And I've got it trained into the open position with no kinks where it's going to snap and close very quickly. I've got a stake coming out of the bench here. I'm going to set this up and show you how to set the height of the snare. So I've got this wired off to a stake here, and the one thing I did not do is just twist it as tightly as I could to the stake. If that was the case, when you were to snare an animal, it would just work the wire back and forth and just worry through the wire. You want this to have a little bit of movement and not be able to slip off, but not be able to be tightly attached to the stake where the animal can just work the wire without moving the knot. So with this snare, you're going to want this to face dead in the path. So if this camera was pointed directly down the trail, you would want a nice open loop. You would not want it off center even slightly. You want to use that full diameter if possible. Now for the height, again, that's going to depend on your target species. I would give it probably about 3 fingers for a rabbit. And then you can just move the wire around until you get about the right height. So Jamie's card's got a saw on it as well. I'm going to take this saw and I'm going to cut a small slit on top of the stake, and that's going to help me position the snare and make it stay where I want it. So that worked out about perfectly, and that's all you need. You're not trying to get it to stay. You just want to keep the wind, or if an animal is to just accidentally brush this, to keep it from moving. And then when an animal comes through, it's going to pull itself tight, and it's going to be waiting there for you when you come to get it. You can definitely set effective picture wire snares using no locks, but these locks work great. It's a no-brainer to carry them on this card, and you've got a lot of other functions as well. I think these snare locks should be included in a lot of other tools. They're pretty darn handy, and once you get used to carrying wire, you'll have a hard time not carrying it anymore. But these locks take regular wire snares and make them that much more effective.